Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Penny for a Tale. My name is Mitchell, and we have a very awesome special guest today with us, the game designer and creator, head of Fate of the Norns, who's created such titles as Vanguard as well as Ragnarok. And they currently have a Kickstarter out right now, and that detail will, of course, be on, if you're looking at me, on your right. If you're here with me, it'll be to the left, that you can check out whenever you wish. So, Andrew, why don't you introduce yourself for us?
Hey Mitch, how you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah, it's been a good Monday.
I know, and we've both been very busy since PAX Unplugged.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm the head of Pendlehaven Publishing. We publish a multitude of games and books and everything Viking entertainment. And our flagship is Fate of the Norns. So it's a line of tabletop games, novels, mythology books, you name it, with a bunch of new stuff coming out every year. And right now, yeah, we have a Kickstarter running called The Children of Eriu, which is an expansion to the world that will include the Celtic kingdoms, and it's a standalone RPG. So it's a great jumping off point if you're interested in the Fate of the Norns universe.
Oh yeah, and it is amazing. If anyone hasn't seen it yet, I'm just gonna pull this up for you. Um, Grab all the books I have. But yeah, this is Ragnarok that I have right here that I picked up at PAX Unplugged. And if you can just look at the art, let me get a good picture here for it.
Yeah, our art budgets are pretty out there.
Yeah. So what led you to kind of go with this sort of art style instead of a more traditional style?
Well, I think we want it to be as authentic as possible with everything that we do. So since we're creating a Viking RPG that's set in about 1100 years ago, so but the 10th century, we wanted a everything to be researched in history and myth. We're kind of sneaky that way. We're going to teach you while you play, and we wanted the immersion to be there with everything that's authentic from the mechanics, which utilize the Elder Futhark set of runes
Mhm.
rather than dice. The artwork that would be very evocative, that would take you back 1,000 years. Wood etchings that look like they've been stained with natural dyes. Along with even we pay attention to the paper that we use in the printing process. We go with matte paper to give it more of a parchment feel. So pretty much everything we do, we kind of try to reinforce that immersion for the player.
Yeah, and for those watching, like if you flip through this page, it almost like you're reading from an in-game like tome, with the pages feeling very parchment like, and with just kind of like these full illustrations with stories in it as well. Um, so it is amazing, especially the cover has kind of a very rough feel to it. Um, but for those who kind of have no idea about Ragnarok, what is kind of like your sales pitch, especially for those who have just played 5e?
Okay. We'll give you a little bit of context on how old Fate of the Norns is. It started as a little brainchild of ours back in 1992.
Whew.
So this was kind of something that we wanted to kick around and create our own homebrew world and homebrew system. And back in the day, it was like a 2d10 system where the tens digit meant something, the ones digit along with the percentile digits. So you'd read a couple of mechanics out of just that single percentile roll.
Yeah.
And then in 2002, we ended up creating a life path system that utilized the Elder Futhark set, and that kind of set me off, starting to think about how we can utilize this as more of a core mechanic. And I came from the frame of mind of, you take a look at a lot of the RPG designers, it's the first thing is, okay, we've got all these mechanics that are out there. What can we do as a cool spin on mechanics? But with the board game invasion that was hitting around that same time in the early
Yeah.
2000s, with the Euros that were coming in, I looked at how they approached game design, and I found that extremely refreshing and actually the right way to do it. Whereas they would look at the player dynamics around the table and say, what are the healthiest play dynamics that we want to see between the players in the game, and vice versa, and then how do we build mechanics that reinforce that? And so that's I took a page out of that and I took a step back and I said, okay, how do I want the dynamics to be around the player table at an RPG game? And we started looking at how we could do this with dice, and with dice, it just wasn't working with every combination of dice that are out there.
Yeah.
And then I went back and started looking at the runes again, and the runes allowed us to move into a paradigm about interesting decisions for players, presenting them with interesting decisions with slight randomization, and that lead to very meaningful consequences. So we wanted to eliminate this, roll to hit, roll for damage, this ad nauseum number crunching that takes you out of the immersion, out of the experience. And we wanted a mechanic that actually takes out all of this extra counting that and reinforces your immersion in the game. So the spotlight's on the action, and everything that you do, the world reacts to it, and you react to the world. So it's kind of an action reaction paradigm. Um, and so with the runic system kind of in development, 2006 is around the time I finished the whole rule set with the runes, and I figured at this time it would be a good time to actually change the setting as well a little bit. So instead of having the earlier periods from the Norse myths, I fast forwarded them to Ragnarok, the end of the world. So 2006 kind of saw the whole lore change into the four ages of Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
So unlike your traditional Viking games where you're trying to avoid the apocalypse, here it's too late. Your eyeballs deep in the apocalypse. And Ragnarok doesn't happen in one afternoon. Instead, it unfolds over 4 ages. And the first age is precipitated by the destruction of both the sun and moon by two celestial wolves. And that plunges Yggdrasil and the 9 worlds that hang upon its branches and roots into Fimbulwinter, so eternal night and eternal winter. But this is only to last for the first age, and things are supposed to change after that. So with all these prophecies, it comes into a very interesting and unique space because you're not in post-apocalypse. Most players are wishing for the post-apocalypse,
Yeah.
but your eyeballs deep in the cataclysms instead. And so that's what we ended up kickstarting as our first Kickstarter in 2012, which basically saw the debut of this as a commercial venture. Before that, it was really just a hobby with people buying a PDF or something from us for like $2,
Yeah.
and that kind of proliferated and stuff. But with that first Kickstarter, the whole world then started maturing with every product that we were releasing. So the next one was like Fafnir's Treasure that we released, then Denizens of the North, then Lords of the Ash, then card games and runes. So it's really snowballed over the last 7 years.
And that is awesome to hear because you don't find a lot of uh, at these conventions a very unique set of experiences that are kind of tailored for the setting. I mean, just looking at the runes that I have here, if people can kind of check that out, it's just this is the almost the dice resolution system or the conflict resolution system. Um, and it is amazing because it just looking at it, it kind of just reinforces the whole setting as you're looking at them, and you can kind of be like, oh, I know what that rune is, and what it means, and such like that, and can kind of role play based off of that. But it is definitely astounding to see.
Well, it was a design element that actually allowed us to teach the game very quickly. So I've played every iteration of D&D since inception, and teaching, let's say, third edition with all those archaic actions, so like full round actions, partial actions,
Yeah.
free actions, bonus actions. It's like for a new player, they're like, okay, I don't know what I can do in a turn, and then fifth, now you've got like bonus actions, reaction actions, things like that. Again, the same thing. The players are like, I don't understand what I can do in a turn. If I can attack multiple times, is that multiple actions? So there's a lot of that circuitry, short circuiting in the brain when someone's trying to learn that system.
Yeah.
Whereas with the runic system, your actions are physical. You can actually see them, you can interact with them, and all actions are unified. So there are no exception rules that say, oh, if I've cast a spell this turn, I can't cast a second spell unless it's a cantrip with a bonus action. None of that. It's really, what you see is what you have, and what you have is what you can do. And we eliminate all of these little caveats that take you down, the dark precipices in the rule book where you're like, oh my God, how many exceptions are there to these rules?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm not going to mention the game on stream because I love all games. But I was playing a game where it's like it references one thing and it's like, well, you need to look at this other book to see what that is, and then when you go to that other book and it's like, well, it's also like this thing from another book. But yeah, it's very refreshing to have the everything right there in front of you, and I especially love the player mats. What was the
Yeah,
idea behind that?
the goal was to actually make it feel again like a game. So you look at just watch the dynamics around a table as people are taking damage. They're furiously grabbing for their erasers, erasing, writing, doing math. And it's like if you were to look at this and not know what an RPG is, you'd swear these people are doing their taxes or homework or something.
Yeah.
So we wanted this to feel like a game, and again, taking a page from the Euro invasion for board games and how they look at the design is, how do we make play visually appealing and intuitive, and not make it feel like you're doing accounting. So with the playmat, what happens is the runes in the playmat manage the entire state of your character. You don't need a pencil and paper for anything except like quest notes and your
Hmm.
loot. So in terms of you should suffer from conditions, you mark that on the playmat. As you draw your runes for your actions, you draw them into a special zone on that playmat. When you use your runes to precipitate actions or initiate actions, you're going to push them into a different zone. Then when you take damage, you're going to reach into your bag, pull out runes at random, and they're going to move down this damage track. So again, it's very visual, very tactile, and it's extremely easy to teach. I usually have people playing in under 5 minutes.
Yeah, I saw the demo booth you guys had. I wish I could have stuck around to check it out.
Well, next time, definitely. We were talking before the stream started. I definitely have to set up a game for you guys online.
Oh, that would be amazing. Because, like I said, it's such a unique premise and unique world. But you also have the children of Eru, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Kiryu, yeah.
Kiryu. And for those watching, I'm just going to post that once again on the chat just so that you can also look at it. Because for me, I've always had a strong interest in kind of like the Celtic um, culture and the way they dress and just everything around it. So, what is this new kind of expansion supplement or new game that you guys have coming out?
So I would call it just a new game rather
Mm-hmm.
than like muddying it up as an expansion, because it is a standalone RPG,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be a really big book because there's a lot of lore to cover. There are, like, if you look at it academically, there are about 6 Celtic kingdoms that are studied by historians and mythology geeks, and everything is based on a period again around the 8th to 10th century, which is kind of the fate of the Norns universe. So you could
Mm-hmm.
play before Ragnarok. You could even pull this into Ragnarok and see how the Celtic kingdoms and all the pantheons will interact with everything that's going on in the Norse pantheon and the rest of Midgard, the realm of mankind.
Mm-hmm.
And the mechanics advance the system, the runic game system, to 3.0. So to give you a little bit of history, when I created the system in 2006, I called it 1.0. And then when we went commercial in 2012, I had collected some feedback from gameplay and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
and we released 2.0. But pretty much everyone that kind of came on board when we went commercial thought that was the first edition, but it's actually the second iteration of the Runic game system.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I wanted to always do is make sure we don't invalidate previous materials,
Mm-hmm.
whether mechanically or through lore or whatnot. So RGS2 was compatible with RGS1. People can play the same archetypes, characters, and the same different game tables playing different versions. And it's the same thing with RGS3 that's coming in the Children of Eru. It's completely backwards compatible with RGS2 and all that material, but we've added a lot of interesting things. So the first one is social combat. So
Ooh.
one of the things we looked at was, if you've ever played games like Mouse Guard and Burning Wheel, where they've got, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit crunchier mechanics on how to handle interactions. We've gone that route for social interactions, so you can resolve them very quickly with a single skill check if you so choose. But we're now providing a whole back and forth interaction where you can try to question someone to get information from them, or you can provoke them into an emotional condition. So your characters can actually now feel, right? So it's not just status conditions like paralyzed and petrified. You've got things like anger, fear, apathy, grief, those kinds of things that your character can actually experience, and they have implications on the actual game system, like how you interact in combat and out of combat. And one of the design goals was also to make sure that the social combat and the physical combat could merge together. So
Hmm.
picture like a Zorro movie, you know, where they're dueling and fighting, but they're
Yeah.
mocking each other and taunting each other. This is the kind of dynamic that we've built into Runic Game System 3. So you've got the social mechanics. We've done a lot of streamlining for combat to make it faster, and from the ground up for both Theater of the Mind and the Hex Map. So if you look at our books from Ragnarok RGS2, core rule book dealt more with minis, and Denizens of the North, the first big book expansion, did more of the Theater of the Mind. So right now, you know, starting with a fresh blank slate for this, we're doing it right out of the gates for both options. So players can play either way without requiring any additional materials.
Nice. That's really cool to see because I'm currently about halfway, about 3/4 of the way through Ragnarok, the core rule book, and so now I'm really interested to check out Fate of the Norm to see kind of like what the Theater of Mind looks like and how it compares. I'm a person who enjoys both, depending on kind of the setting.
Mm-hmm.
And just the players I have, so it's really cool to see a game that can do both, and do both pretty well.
And I
Um,
know around a table there's always going to be different
hmm.
play styles, right? So some people like long, drawn out tactical combats. They have no problems with 90-minute battle in an
Yeah.
evening. Whereas other players are like, you know what, that 90 minutes, I wish we could have had three battles and advanced the story a couple of chapters in that hour and a half, right?
Yep.
So we want to give the GMs a toolkit that they can actually run the game how they would like. So you want fast combat or do you want long drawn out combats? We give you both, and it's to your flavor. And that also speaks to the RGS and how it's built on three levels of crunch or complexity.
Hmm.
I don't know if we got into that when you visited our booth at PAX Unplugged.
I don't think so. No, not yet.
Okay, so what I wanted to do was create the world's first RPG that actually is built on three levels of crunch, which
Hmm.
is like mechanical complexity. Because after 30 plus years of playing RPGs, I know that everyone at a table has a different threshold for rules and math.
Yep.
You know, your group of friends, not because you have the same love for crunch, but for more substantial reasons, right? So it's like, I give the anecdote when my friend says, "Hey, let's play Fate." The guy that loves Shadowrun is like, "Shoot me in the head now, please." And then when we pull out Dangerous Journeys or something, the guy that loves Fate or Dogs in the Vineyard, he's like, okay, too many rules, too many numbers, I'm
Hmm.
lost, right? So RGS was built with that problem in mind, and we fix it right out of the gate. So what happens is there's three levels of crunch on how you can use your action economy, your
Hmm.
runes. The lowest level of crunch is just pure narrative. Simply describe what you want to do, and for every verb you use, it's going to cost you a rune. So you
Okay.
could say, like there's an assassin in the tavern, and you could say, okay, I play a rune to run up to him, then I play another rune to draw my swords, and I play another rune to stab him in the face. So, run, draw, and stab would be your three actions. And you'd play three runes to resolve that, that series of actions.
Yeah.
You're not really worrying about the rules too much. You're basically telling a story, and it's an action reaction system. So your attack is compared versus his defense, and if it exceeds it, he gets an opportunity to play his runes to parry and try to get out of the way.
Hmm.
So that's like Crunch Zero. Then you can go to Crunch One, which is now you're playing your symbols, your runes for their symbols. So as you showed before on your webcam, every single rune has a unique symbol, and when you create your character, you bind those your powers, spells, maneuvers to those symbols, those various symbols. So every character is going to have their custom rune bag. So by playing that rune for the symbol, you're going to trigger that active power or passive power or skill or whatnot. And then that's Crunch One. And then Crunch Two is you can actually combine runes together to
Hmm.
change the way powers work. So I don't have any visuals to kind of show you here. Sorry, no webcam. I wasn't prepared for
It's cool.
a video interview, but um, if anyone looks up, the play mats or some of the powers and tutorials we have out there, you can combine runes together to change the way powers work. So you'll have less actions, but more potent actions, and you'll change the way they function. And these, that level of crunch scratches the itch for those min maxers, those combo
Yeah.
players. They get the endorphins in the brain when they kind of, grok the most optimal play. And these three levels of crunch, you're not locked into any of them. Like a single player can do three actions on three different levels of crunch in a single combat round. So
Interesting.
we wanted this to be built in a very fluid manner, so no one has to pre-commit to anything. And it's great for a GM because the GM can run, their minions, the ones that are going to die anyways. They're hordes of goblins on crunch zero, right? Just verbs as they're
Hmm.
doing stuff to the players, and then that frees up the GM to spend their mental cycles on the stuff that matters. So now they can look at the powers for the Arc Lich and go, ooh, if I combine my runes like this, I'll put the fear of God into my players. So yeah, those three levels of crunch help both players and GM.
So if I'm hearing this right, you can use all three levels of crunch just in one combat setting, and you can change it depending on what player prefers what style.
Exactly. So, for example, let's say I've got a power that says, let's take an example of power attack, right? So
Hmm.
you'll have a rune symbol bound to this power attack, and then power attack will, in its description, say if you add red runes to it, you will amplify it. Oh, and the
Yeah.
three colors, by the way, I think we skipped over that when you were showing the runes. They're your traits. So if you're coming from the D&D world, they're like your ability scores. Red runes are physical, blue runes are mental, and green runes are spiritual. So the more that you have in your customized rune bag of a certain color, the higher your trait score, and obviously the better you're going to be at those types of skills and activities. So getting back to that example, I could play a rune to say I just draw my sword. And that would be crunch zero, right? I'm just
Mhm.
narrating. But then my next action, that same round, I can just say I play that rune for the power attack, and I'm going to add a red rune beside it to amplify it. So I'll double the effect of the power attack. So I've just played a crunch zero and a crunch two action, one right after the other in a combat round. So it's like any player could play at any level at any time, and they kind of just you you don't even think about them. They kind of just blend into the background as you play.
Yeah. That is very interesting from a design point because I don't think I've ever heard of any other role playing game that's able to kind of let the player and the GM pick and choose like how much crunch they want in a certain combat or even during it. So that's really fascinating to see.
Yeah, because there's so many times I've picked up, like I'm a hopeless RPG collector. I have
Me
bookshelves
too.
of
Yep.
RPGs, and how many times have I looked at a setting and I read the setting and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I love what this author came up with in their unique setting. And then I look at the mechanics and I'm like, oh, there's no way I'm going to field this to my table of players, right? They're not going to buy into the mechanics, or vice versa. Some really wicked, awesome mechanics, but then the world just falls flat.
Yeah.
So we want to be able to have people access the Fate of the Norns universe and play at the level they enjoy.
Yeah, and especially with the diverse groups and people coming, because there's a lot more role playing games out there, and so when you have players come in, a lot of people come from vastly different backgrounds. So Traveler in 5e and Powered by the Apocalypse. So it's really cool to see that you can bring something like this to the table and be like, there is something for everyone here.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
exactly.
really cool. So all of your books have like this huge, amazing historical background at the start of them. Um, what first got you into kind of like this very thorough look at these traditions and stories and such? And for your new Kickstarter, how'd you go about researching for that?
So we have to go back to probably the mid to late '80s for the genesis of this, and this I would have to put it on the authors of Deities and Demigods or Legends and Lore. That book actually opened my eyes to the wonders of different mythologies, and
Mm-hmm.
ever since I've been, again, as big as my RPG collection is, I've got a bigger bookshelf on mythologies of different pantheons, different periods in the world. And I think Norse was my favorite, so that's why we kind of went with that in the early '90s when we started Fate of the Norns.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm just a sponge, so I'll read whatever I can pick up when I go to used bookstores. I'm in those sections just scouring for books that I don't have. And I never studied it academically. And the funny story is, I mean, if we can do a quick aside here,
Yeah, of course.
um, what one of our previous Kickstarters was called the Illuminated Edda, and so this was a translation of both the prose and poetic Eddas from Old Norse to English. Exactly, that one right there. That one was 3.5 years of my life,
Oh man.
and I think I have over a dozen translations from professors in my house of this book. or of some of the stories in this book. And
Mm-hmm.
you get friends that come by and they're like, "Hey, I want to learn the authentic myths. Can I borrow one of your Eddas?" And I go, "Sure," and grab one. And 2 days later, they come back and they're handing me the book back, and they're like, "I can't read this. This is just it's too dry, too academic. It's putting me to sleep. I thought I
Yeah.
loved Vikings." So I figured, rather than do another academic translation, what I wanted to do was make an accurate but modern translation that reads like a novel. So
Mm-hmm.
with prose that flows, that's very evocative in terms of your imagination. You can picture everything that's going on. And so I took, 2.5 years to do the translation, then another year to rewrite the archaic English into like modern prose.
Ooh.
And that was that book there. And the funny thing was, I ended up getting an email from a professor at Oxford. I think, if I remember correctly, one of her students had gifted my translation to her, and she has her own translation. And she reached out to me, and one of her first things she said in the email was, "It's very clear that you did not study this academically." And I was just like, "Oh my god, she's about to tear me like up to
Yeah,
pieces."
that would scare me.
And then her next sentence was, "Well, it's because your ideas are a breath of fresh air, and I can totally see these translations being very authentic in terms of the source material." She goes, "You're definitely not regurgitating everything that's been, in this echo chamber of academia."
Mm-hmm.
And she actually gave me a really nice endorsement that we put on the back cover of that book. And so that's pretty much, I guess, where all my lore comes from. I'm just like a hopeless reader. Like, I love mythology. I'll grab whatever I can and just uh, digest it. And so with Children of Eriu, I love Celtic mythology, but my knowledge was nowhere near as deep as it was with Norse mythology. So I knew two friends of mine that knew it better than I do. So Metzger and Tyler, and I asked them if they'd be interested in writing the lore and some mechanics and the archetypes and whatnot. And so they came on board, and I mean, every single time I was getting together with them on Skype, like a team meeting on where we are with the book, where we're going to tackle next. I mean, I was constantly on Wikipedia and just looking through
Yeah.
my own materials, going like, "Holy cow, these guys know so much more! I'm learning so much on every single call," which was fantastic because it allowed us to now create a very authentic Celtic experience. Right? We're not shortchanging the reader. We're presenting things in the most up to date academic and historical and mythological context. And that's one of the things we strive in our Fate of the Norns universe is, if you're lacking source material, just go to the library and go get anything on any of these ancient civilizations that we put into our game world, and it's canon in our world.
That is really refreshing. I mean, especially in terms of education, you as a gamer, you read so much of, and a lot of it's like this knowledge that you will never, never use. But at least something like this, you're like, yeah, I'm kind of getting a glimpse of the past.
Yeah, yeah, that was very nice in terms of the side effects, because a lot of people would be like, "What? Thor and Odin aren't Thor and Loki are not brothers?"
Yeah.
Like all of these stories, like, what do you mean Loki was a mother? So yeah, there's all kinds of these amazing things out of mythology that you're like, we don't even need to make this stuff up. It's so strange and amazing as it is already. So I think also Vikings now are having this huge revival. There's so many things that are like
Yeah.
Norse inspired in TV and anime and movies, that I mean, I think we're riding this wave of popularity, and it's nice to see. Cons people show up and they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we know your system. What's new?"
I know that'll be neat. That'll be me at Origins or Gen Con, whichever you guys come to next.
We're doing PAX South in January. Then we're
Ooh.
doing PAX East and GaryCon in March. Then we're doing Comic Con and Attack-a-thon in Montreal, and then probably it's going to be Gen Con will be the
Mm-hmm.
next one out of the ones you mentioned. Yeah, in August.
Nice. We'll definitely have to hit that up sometime. Um, so you also have a deck of Celtic Tarot cards coming out with the new Kickstarter as well. Are those going to have kind of any in-game meaning, or is it purely just kind of just to have?
So it's a little bit of both. I mean, the artwork, I wanted to take a new direction in the design of the book. So I wanted a lot of these vertical half-page pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And as they were rolling in from my artist, very talented Julianne, who's doing most of the book, I started looking at them and I'm like, this is a sin to not, use these elsewhere. And so I started
Yeah.
thinking like we can just, for people that don't like games, and that just love art. Because I mean, there are a lot of people that stop by our booth and they're not even gamers. They're just like, what is this? What is all this art? It's beautiful. So I decided that with that format, it'd be great to have tarot cards with this really evocative artwork. And then, I mean, just this October, we were playing a nice Halloween Ravenloft adventure in second ed, and I forgot about that deck of cards, the tarot cards from Ravenloft universe, and that got the creative juices flowing on my side again. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, yeah, we can probably integrate this tarot deck into the game world as well. So the ideas are churning, nothing concrete, but
Hmm.
hopefully by the time this gets released, you'll have an in-game use for it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And right now, you guys have 10 more days coming off during Christmas time. 248 backers, way over the goal you guys have set for yourselves, along with some stretch goals have already been rolled out. But you also have a couple more. Can you tell us a little bit like what's coming up and what has already been unlocked, and why should someone come tonight, today, and back this amazing project?
Okay, so first of all, like everything is discounted at the Kickstarter. So you're going to get like massive savings on our books. So they're not cheap books because we pack a lot of artwork into them. They're produced, in a hardcover in large format. So they're not like the small 6x9 paperbacks where you've got like a black and white picture every couple of pages. So because of the high production value, yes, they carry a higher MSRP. So this is a great time to actually pick them up at a big discount during the Kickstarter. So not just Children Vary You, the Celtic Cyclopedia, and the Tarot deck, but our entire catalog is available as well as add-ons, and even some of the pledge levels have the rest of our product catalog. The highest level backing actually gets this stunning leather map. So if you scroll down, there are photos of this map. He's my buddy Kafir that I met at, was it Gary Con 2 years ago? I'd like to say that. I think, no, it was Dragon Con 2 years ago.
Ooh, nice.
And he does these amazing 3D maps on elk skin, like hide, leather hide. So he takes a soldering iron and burns in the map into this hide, and the heat actually produces like a bump map effect. So the mountains really pop off. And then he's got this amazing painting technique that he actually goes over the artwork again and adds that final finish that makes it pop even more. And on top of that, he even cuts out special leather pieces that would be like icons for cities and key locations on the maps, and he glues them on top. So he brought the original. I don't know if you passed by our booth.
I did, yeah. I saw it in that wonderful. Yeah, I definitely saw it. It was so cool.
So that's a one of a kind, and it's actually available for the highest pledge level. You will get the original, and I'm jealous. So I want one. I want to find a way to keep this one if I can. So yeah, wait, don't back it. No one takes that highest pledge level.
No one do it.
Then it stays with me. Um, but yeah, that's a one of a kind, amazing thing, and it actually contributed to one of the stretch goals, which we will now produce prints that everyone can get of this amazing map. So a small print that'll come with a bundle of everything that you have.
Mhm.
We've also added 2 archetypes into the core rule book as well. So these were omitted in the core rule book for Ragnarok. And in hindsight, I really wanted to include them, but then I started looking at the size of the Children of Area. I'm like, do I include it? Do I not? And I said, all right, well, if we hit a stretch goal, we'll definitely throw them in. And that stretch goal has been unlocked. So you get the Monk and the Ironsmith. So it's a Christian monk.
Mhm.
Picture, the mystic tradition of the early Irish church. So this is a period where there were a lot of saints, a lot of supernatural magic, battles between good and evil. So it's a very interesting archetype, along with all the stories and adventure arcs that go with it. And same thing with the Ironsmith. It's actually a crafting archetype that introduces schools of crafting. So you know how in RPGs you've got schools of magic?
Yeah.
Well, we've got schools of magic, but here we've also got schools of crafting. So if you read a lot of these sagas, these old tales, you would actually see situations where several blacksmiths would get together to create something of wondrous power. And so with these different schools of crafting, it permits that dynamic around the table. Um, So then we've got the prints. We're going to be adding a lot of stuff that's for free as well. So if you take a look at, we're going to be creating condition decks. So, like remember those emotional conditions I was talking to you about in terms
Yeah.
of their information? How nice is that to have just on poker-sized cards that you can just hand to the player, so no one has to go flipping through a book. Again, we want to reinforce the immersion in the game. We don't want to have you scouring the book to see what the mechanics are for feeling grief. So these decks are going to actually help streamline the experience. We're going to be doing one potentially for powers. So every single power in the book is going to come with its own card.
Oh
So you
yeah,
can
those
actually
that's
just have
really
those.
helpful.
And then other stretch goals that aren't even listed on the board game on the webpage, but I can give you an exclusive, is like a GM screen. Is another one that's going to be listed if we knock out the next three stretch goals. And I don't see why we wouldn't, because I mean, from this is our 12th Kickstarter, and usually the last 48 hours are pretty crazy.
Yeah,
Uh,
they can be.
so with the curve that we've got, there's no reason why those would not get unlocked, and everyone gets them. So that's the thing. We're going to bundle everything into the stretch goal pack that everyone gets mailed out to them. So it's not like an extra that you'd have to pay for. The only reason you'd have to pay for the shipping of the stretch goals is if you took the pod option, the print on demand option for the book, because that's going to be separate shipping.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, it looks amazing and super excited to kind of see it come to light. Will it be at Gen Con or maybe a little bit later?
No, it'll actually be sooner. So the whole thing is we've been working on this for the last 2 years, I think. Yeah, it's just about 2 years. So the manuscript's pretty much done. We're already started the editing. As soon as we funded, we're like, all right, editor, go at it. And then, I've got my design guy that's going to be laying it out. And he's already started looking at how he's going to put that together. I'm finishing up the rules chapter, just adding the last minute polish from the last beta feedback. So the first thing that we're going to be able to release, actually, like very soon after, is the Celtic Cyclopedia. So, which is a book that is just the lore. So all the game material stripped out. So if you're just someone who loves Celtic myths and history, or wanted to use this as maybe source material in another RPG, or just want to use this as a coffee table book that you enjoy reading,
Yeah.
that's going to be the very first thing that we produce, because we're almost there with that one. Same thing with the tarot deck. We're almost art complete, so I'd be able to whip up that tarot deck very quickly after Kickstarter complete. And then there's no reason why the RPG is going to take a while to release in the state that it's in. We're almost there as well.
Oh,
And I've
that's
also
awesome
got
to hear.
I've got the next three Kickstarters already lined up as well. So my
Can you
my
can you
philosophy
can you
is,
tell us anything about the next three?
yeah, I can definitely. Again, more exclusives on your channel here.
Yeah.
Um, so in the last Kickstarter that we did before Children of Eru, the Creatures from Fairy Tale and Myth, I had the pleasure to work with three spectacular authors that wrote alongside me the different stories for the creatures. So the first one was Ed Greenwood of Forgotten Realms fame.
Oh, nice.
Michelle Franklin, which I absolutely love her writing, very Terry Pratchett-esque. And James Kerr, someone who's been writing a lot of the adventures for Fate of the Norns, amazing adventures. So he's on board. He was on board in that project, and so all of us are going to be making a return with the mega. What's the working title here? The Mega Anthology, which is a bunch of novels, graphic novels, and adventures based on the novels and graphic novels set in our Fate of the Norns universe.
Nice.
The one after that is a Viking horror investigation game, which is picture Call of Cthulhu meets Fate of the Norns. It is the third age of Ragnarok. It is called the War of Shadow, and this is where Nidhogg, the world-devouring dragon, actually threatens to just win the fight single-handedly by himself, never getting to fourth age. So everyone feels a lot weaker in this age
Yeah.
as he comes into his own power. And the game is all about investigation, because head-on conflict without being properly prepared is certain death. So it's going to be, again, very evocative of the horror aspect. And
Yeah,
I don't
horror
think
is my favorite genre. So hearing that fills me with glee.
awesome. And then the one after that is my board game, The Chronicle of Kings. So this is a board game where you play a dynasty of Viking nobles. So every single turn that passes in the game is 15 years go by. So your nobles are aging and they're dying of old age, or being out in the world on the battlefield or fighting monsters that are rampaging. So you need to have your succession planned out, and it's a asymmetrical game where I don't want to use the word 4x, but it has like a 4x look until you start playing,
Yeah.
and then a lot more in-depth play about the characters and their interactions with one another. So it's a lot more centric on the nobles, even though you do have a map to grow a kingdom and hunt monsters and establish trade routes and things like that.
That sounds really cool.
So it's a busy Kickstarter roadmap.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Is that all going to come about in 2020 or 2020-21?
I don't even want to speculate, because I've speculated in the past and been totally off on dates. So
we'll just say 2020.
Yeah.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
We have to be very, very efficient in our execution.
Yeah. No, I totally understand.
And for me, I don't want to run a Kickstarter until I've completely delivered a previous Kickstarter. So that's kind of my own personal mantra. And the one thing with Creatures from Fairy Tale and Myth overlapping a little bit with Children of Ariu is because I realized that the Fate of the Norns version of Creatures from Fairy Tale and Myth, there's no reason why it shouldn't use RGS3 rules alongside RGS2 rules. So I wanted it to be closer to the release of the Children of Ariu. So the people that get this Creatures from Fairy Tale and Myth book will actually have a book that's both forward and backwards compatible. Like, you'll be able to drop it in seamlessly into either game system.
Oh, that's awesome. That is good to hear. Yeah, so man, a lot of stuff going on over at Fate of the Norns, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, busy. The team's growing too. We've got a bunch of little satellite projects that are also in the works already that aren't on the Kickstarter roadmap yet, but they are already projects that are underway. So look forward to a lot more interesting stuff coming out under the Fate of the Norns banner.
Awesome. And we'll definitely, for those watching, we'll schedule sometime in January or February to have Andrew back to run us through this amazing game. And for those who are also watching, please check out the Kickstarter. I will put its information right there on the chat. And if you're watching on YouTube, it'll be right below. You just click on that and go over there, and you can click on any pledge but the last one.
Yeah, that one's mine.
Yeah, that is Andrew's.
Thank you so much, and I look forward to running the game for you guys.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have any final parting words?
Skål.
Awesome.
If I had my webcam, you'd have me drinking my mead right now.
Next time, and I'll have my my flask filled up as well.
That's right. He has an authentic Fate of the Norns flask. You could flash that to the camera as well. So we've started producing these guys. You can't play Ragnarok sober.
You can't. Yeah, it's part of the rule set. You just got it. All right. Well, thank you very much, Andrew, and we hope to see you again.
Thanks, Mitch. Count on it.
See everyone later.